Hi, my name is Jamie, and I'm a woman in long term recovery. What that means to me is that it's been about 4.5 years since I have had to use any mood or mind altering substances. Um, Recovery has afforded me so many gifts, including the second chance to be a mother and to be part of an amazing community of recovery people and to be part of some amazing things with the state of Georgia. And so I just want to tell you a little bit about what it was like before and what it's like now. So I am actually from New England. My father was an alcoholic. I had a lot of trauma growing up. I didn't have like a great, uh, you know, stable environment or anything. My father was a very violent, abusive alcoholic. My mother was an enabler. I have a younger sister and brother, and a lot of times I spent trying to comfort them and take care of them. Growing up in school, I kind of got picked on a lot. I was chubby and socially awkward. And so growing up was like really hard for me, especially because we moved all the time. So I went to 12 different schools by the time I graduated high school. So it was like there was so much stress and drama at home. I felt like I could never tell anybody what was going on. And so, I kind of got into some things, started like cutting myself, and was really into like self-hatred. And it was like I really just hated myself. I think it might have been the fact that anytime anyone said my name in my house, it wasn't a good thing. It was like, Jamie, why did you spill this water? Or why aren't the dishes done? Or why does your brother have makeup all over his face? So it was never like, oh, good job, Jamie, I'm proud of you. I think I remember my dad telling me he was proud of me one time in the 10th grade on the phone, and that was the only time I remember. So when I was in high school, that was when I started kind of drinking and doing like recreational, like high school stuff, and I remember going to this party, and it was like I was drinking and like smoking, and there was people, and I remember all of a sudden I got to this point where I didn't have any insecurities. Like, I had drank enough that all of a sudden I was funny and I was charming and people liked me, and I felt secure and pretty, and I wasn't scared to talk to anybody. And I knew right then I had found my solution in alcohol. And of course, there were other things that came along with it, and I wish that, that had stayed my solution. But unfortunately, with the disease of addiction, that's not where we stop at. So, I went through college and I did well in school, all being able to maintain my drinking. I actually worked 2 jobs and went to college. All of that, abusing drugs and alcohol. And I ended up, having a child and abstained during that period when I was pregnant. And then fast forward, I ended up having another child. But that time, it was like things were a little more out of my control. I had started taking, prescription medications, and it was like I couldn't stop taking them no matter how bad I wanted to. And I was like, thinking like, I'm pregnant. I have a child inside of me, and I can't stop taking these pills. And it was like, it was terrible, the guilt and the shame. And I ended up having my daughter while I was addicted to pain pills. And she got taken from me right away. They didn't let me, I wasn't even allowed to be around her unsupervised. And it was like, I never thought that I could be more hateful to myself and ashamed of myself than I was at that point. Because, I didn't understand how I made it through my first pregnancy and I was okay. But then the second time, like, I couldn't do it. And I didn't understand, like, why can't I stop? That put me into a pretty bad downward spiral. I was in and out of detox about 8 different times. And it was crazy because every time I would get out of detox, I would go back to doing the same thing. And I would be like, it's okay because I'm cured, right? Like, I went through detox. They put me on some prescriptions. I'm totally cured now. I can go back to drinking and drugging the way that I used to. And then every time I could not understand why I was getting in the same predicaments, why the same things were happening, why I was going through withdrawals again, why I was so addicted that I couldn't stop again. And it just didn't make sense to me. And then of course I started getting into some legal trouble. And actually today I will tell you that, that legal trouble saved my life. So the last time that I got arrested, they put me on this 4-year first offenders probation, and they told me, like, you have to pass a drug test and not drink for 4 years. And I was like, I don't know how to do that. So I remember my moment of surrender was when I was walking down a main road in Gwinnett County, and I remember I was trying to figure out who I was going to manipulate for another hotel room to sleep in. And I was so tired of, sleeping with people for a couch to stay on. I was tired of talking to people I didn't want to talk to. I was just tired of it all. I was tired of walking around with a garbage bag on my back with all my stuff in it and not having a place to put my things. I was tired of not seeing my children. I was tired of, like, just everything. My family not being happy with me not being happy with me. And I knew something had to change, but I didn't know how to change it. So I got a call from a friend of mine who was going to a halfway house in Athens. And she was like, hey, I just got out of prison. I'm going to this halfway house. I think you should come. And all I could do was say yes. So I ended up moving to Athens. And I remember it was like, I was like so excited. I was living in a house with 13 girls. And, I had been by myself for so long. So it was like refreshing to be with other people, to have that connection of other women. And they told me that they were going to love me until I could love myself. They also told me that the reason that I was there was because somebody saw something in me that I couldn't see for myself. They told me, there was some programs that I could work, Narcotics Anonymous or Alcoholics Anonymous. And so I tried it, and I started working steps. Alcoholics Anonymous was my first pathway. When I figured out that I had a disease, I was so happy. Like, I was like, okay, I'm not just some pathetic woman who can't stop using drugs. Like, I actually have something in my brain that, like, clicks, not like everybody else's, And when I remember reading, like, the literature, thinking, like, oh, this is me. This book was wrote about me. And so I remember, getting a sponsor, working steps, getting like 2 jobs. I was working 2 minimum wage jobs. I didn't have a car, but you know what? I did it. I got up every day and I took the bus. I learned the bus line. And, after not too long, it started to feel really good to be able to pay my own bills and have like connection with people where I finally felt like I had a purpose somewhere. Like I had found my place in recovery. I started to develop a relationship with a higher power. And that was really hard for me because I grew up in a very like religious background where it was kind of like a works-based salvation thing where, you had to like be good to get to heaven, and I surely wasn't good. So this was a whole new concept for me in getting this connection to a higher power, and like listing out my concepts of what I needed God to be for me. And that was like that was really the start of something really beautiful. So I went through like all the steps, did my 4-step inventory. I remember my first one, I felt like I was 20 pounds lighter when I left doing that 5th step with my sponsor. And I was like, this is where it's at right here. This is amazing. I don't have to carry these bricks with me anymore. It felt like I lost like a ton of bricks. And then going through, the 6th and 7th step, and working on my character defects, and then, doing like amends. And that was like the most freeing, you guys. Like I remember I had to make an amends to my uncle for stealing his table. So I like literally like stole this table like in the dining room, and everybody like came home and they were like, where's the table? And I'm like, I don't know where it is. It's like, oh my goodness. So I had scrapped it for drug money, and like, so I had to make an amends to my uncle, and I gave him a gift card and told him, this is what I did, but I've changed my life. And he cried. He's like, I like this Jamie so much better. And so that was probably like, I feel like the 4th and 5th step and the 8th and 9th step were just so freeing. And then when I when I started, practicing the 12 steps, started sponsoring women and seeing the difference that I could make in other people's lives, and telling women, sharing my experience, strength, and hope with them, and letting them know that, they're not alone. We share something in common, and that there is possibility to overcome. I mean, since coming, into recovery, I've done some amazing things. I started a business. I got my massage license. I started my own company. I work as a teacher at a school. I work for a nonprofit. I created a protocol for massage and recovery. Just like I got certified through the Georgia Council on Substance Abuse for a peer specialist for addictive disease. All things that were not possible. I am actually block captain of my neighborhood watch, if you can believe that. It's so amazing what recovery can do and the restoration that it brings. Today I get to be with my children. I'm here today, actually. We're in the middle of this pandemic here, and I get to be with my children while they're doing their schooling from home. And it's so wonderful. I never thought that these gifts of recovery would come in the way that they have, and relationships being restored in my family, and me being able to be of service to my family, just at this time, like not just being present, but being helpful. That is amazing that I would even want to, because I used to be just so self-centered, self-seeking, self-absorbed, and now I'm looking at like, how can I be of service to others? So life is just so good now. And there's some other stuff I've been through in recovery, that's not great. I got a divorce. I got engaged. We broke up. My grandmother died. My spiritual father died. But you know what? I stayed sober like through all of it. Like, I stayed sober because I have like a connection of an amazing community. I go to meetings. Fitness is a huge pathway for me. I do boxing and kickboxing. Those are huge for me. So fitness is definitely a big pathway for me. Being of service to others is a pathway for me. Faith and spirituality is a pathway for me. I'm in leadership in my church. I just got asked to be on the board of directors for my church. And it's like, wow. I mean, things have changed so much, God can take a, homeless girl walking around with a garbage bag on her back, on the corner with a needle hanging out of her arm, and turn her into, this wonderful woman of God that serves her community. I mean, I am living proof that recovery is possible. Not just recovery, but miraculous power is possible. God can do anything, and He can change any situation. And I'm just so grateful for recovery today. And I just never in a million years thought that my life would be the way that it is today. So thank you for letting me share my story. I hope you guys have a great day.